So in this video, I'm going to talk to you and share with you my whole experience going on Love Island UK. I went on reality TV and then a few other reality TV shows after that in 2019 and 2020. It is now 2025. And I feel like it's only right that I start to share some of my experience. What I learned, what I struggled with, things that you don't know. Going on TV was without a doubt the most life-changing experience in so many different ways. And I think it's only right that I start to unpack some of those things that made it so life-changing, because it wasn't all plain sailing. It's not everything it's cracked up to be. There are a bunch of highs and a bunch of lows that I want to get stuck into, because there's been a few lessons, let's just say, and I wouldn't be half the man I am today many years later if it wasn't for that experience. I owe a huge amount of my personal growth to going through that experience. Like, it was never the plan, but that's what happened. It was forced evolution, forced growth. And in this video, I want to share some of my insights and give you a bit of an inside scoop on what it's actually like, because there's so much nonsense out there about what it's like. And I'm going to give you my firsthand real life experience. So before I can even get stuck into the story of what it's like going on Love Island, what I learned and all that good stuff, I think I have to take you right back. I have to give you some context, because it's really important. Like, it's so important. So what I've come to learn in the years post reality TV is that reality TV is like a massive magnet for a certain type of person. And this is not a good thing for me. The kind of person I was at 18, 19, 20, 21, when I was getting sucked into the reality TV world, I was insecure. I had no confidence. I wasn't authentic. In fact, I didn't know who I was, so I couldn't even be authentic if I tried. I was a massive people pleaser growing up. I didn't have the easiest childhood. Boo-hoo. And that sort of meant that I grew up living for other people's opinions, other people's admiration. External validation was like my fuel source. I couldn't go anywhere unless I was being validated by people. Like, I lived for it. That meant on the surface, I looked confident. On the surface, I was everybody's friend. I was a bit of a class clown. And all of this was made a million times worse when I got scouted to be a model. I was aged 18-ish, and I started modeling full-time, moved to London, and my ego and my status, everything just inflated to a whole new level. Before that, I was just this regular kid from a really not so nice council estate in the northeast of England, in a city called Hull. I'm not ashamed to say I'm from there, but it's not the coolest place to be from at the same time. And so I've got this not so great background, not so great upbringing. I was a useless student in school. I was so distracted, never listened, got average grades, but I wasn't a great student. And I ended up getting a job as a bartender. Absolutely loved being a bartender, by the way. Like, I loved working behind the bar. It gave me a bit of service level confidence, like working with people. But on a deeper level, it was giving me like unlimited ammo to practice my inauthenticity. Every single day I was meeting hundreds of new customers, hundreds of new people, going on nights out, getting involved in drinking, getting involved in all the other things that happen after you start drinking. And my disconnection from myself, my self-abandonment, let's just call it, was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then imagine you throw this kid into the modeling industry and then you throw him on reality TV. Like, it's not a recipe for success. It's a recipe for disaster. And so that was my background. And what I've came to realize many years later is that reality TV is a magnet for these types of people. Not necessarily like bartenders and models, but people who live for external validation, people who live for being liked by people who effectively don't know themselves well enough, don't know how brilliant they are, and so they think that it's their job to make other people think that they're cool. And of course, yeah, you have like the egomaniacs. You have the people who maybe weren't 20 or 21 like I was, the people who are like 29, 30, 30 plus, and they're in there purely for the financial gain, the status, and all of that's conscious. At least with me, I wasn't doing any of this consciously. I was being completely driven by my subconscious desires, fears, internal instincts. All of it was just about external validation, external gratification, status games. But I didn't even know I was doing it. The wildest part of the story is that when I got what I wanted and I went on reality TV and I climbed the top of this mountain that I thought was gonna solve all of my confidence issues and all of my insecurity issues, it actually made them a gazillion times worse. Like, a gazillion doesn't even do it justice. I went on reality TV And I'm now exposed to the public opinion, the public domain. And yes, like you're like a Z-list celebrity. I'm not trying to say I'm famous or anything, but when you come from a council estate in Hull, and then you're given hundreds of thousands of followers, you're being watched by tens of millions of people every day, you get recognized in the streets and you get loads of hate mail and you get people who you knew before treating you differently after. And there's no training for that. There's no preparation for that. That makes you feel like you're famous. And so what everybody seems to crave is like, yeah, status, money, fame. I felt like I got a massive taste of that, but because I didn't know who I was, because I lacked confidence and self-esteem and self-worth, I was looking for all of those things in other people. I didn't know how to generate it for myself. Being in the public eye was actually a nightmare. Having people leave comments, share my posts, send me DMs, recognize me in the street, all of that was like torture. And this is what I'm talking about when I talk about forced evolution. I would never have signed up for that if I knew that's what I had in store for me. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. Like, it was actually a nightmare. And you know what's crazy is that when I was going through the whole application process and all that, like, I didn't apply for it, but I got asked if I would go on it for 2 years in a row. First year, I actually said no. Second year, I was still very, very unsure. I was living in Italy at the time, working as a model. Milan Fashion Week was coming up and I was super excited for that. And I had this agent and other people in my close circle who was really, really encouraging me to do it. I sort of knew in my gut feeling that this was terrifying. I didn't want to do it. There was a deep part of me that felt like my wounds and my vulnerabilities would be now exposed. And because I had no self-trust, because I'd never practiced being authentic, I never really voiced my opinions before. I always prioritized everyone else's opinions above my own as a massive people pleaser. I literally just like went along with it. I just tiptoed my way. Like, I remember like so vividly, as each day passed, I had more and more and more anxiety. And I knew that what was in store for me was like a whirlwind. But because I didn't trust myself or my gut, I just went along with it. And I trusted other people. They were saying to me, it's going to be a massive opportunity. It's going to be life-changing. It's going to be this, it's going to be that. Think of this, think of that. And 21-year-old me just thought, well, all these people who are older than me probably know better than me. And I just went along with it. I thought, you know what? I feel like in my heart of hearts, I'm a nice person. Like, legit, this was actually my thought process at the time. I thought, I am a nice person. I've got a good heart. There is no way I can be made out to be something that I'm not, because I'm a good person. And that was like my insurance policy in my head. I just thought, if I just go in there and be myself, maybe I'll get kicked out in 2-3 days and no harm will be done. And actually what happened was I was in there until like the week before the final. And I was actually supposed to be in the starting lineup. Another funny story. I was supposed to be in the starting lineup for this TV show where you're introduced as like the first lot of contestants. And the crew came to my house to pick me up, to take me to Spain, to this villa, to be in the starting lineup of this show. They picked me up from my house and I realized I've lost my passport. I realized that my passport is missing, and so they had to delay my entry into the villa. So I was actually the first, I think I was the first like bombshell, as they call them, and I went in on day 6 of my season of Love Island, but I was originally supposed to be in the starting lineup, but I lost my passport. If that is not a sign from the universe saying, don't do this, this is your final chance to bail, I don't know what is. Like, imagine if I just listened to my gut or the gods or whoever was looking out for me that day. But I said no. I said, don't worry, you know, and they said, don't worry. And they arranged for my passport to be replaced. And I had to wait 5 days for a new passport. And then they flew me out and then I went into the show. But it's like I knew all along, I had this nagging voice in the back of my head that I knew this wasn't a good idea. But I went along with it. And I did it anyway. And like I say, I don't regret going on TV because it's led me to where I am today. It's turned me and shaped me into the person who I am today, making this video, talking to you. But if I regret anything, it's that I regret not listening to my gut. I regret being the kind of person who didn't trust himself, because I think of that version of myself and I pity him. I feel sorry for him. I think he's weak. I feel like he had a voice and he was scared to use it. So that's what I regret, because yeah, like that version of myself was so unequipped to deal with being in the public eye, dealing with scrutiny, having a public relationship not work, and having all of that nonsense. All of that led me to absolutely spiral. Like I didn't know how to handle it. And then COVID happened. And so I had this like mental health crash effectively. I didn't know who I was. And I felt this insane pressure to figure out who I was ASAP, because now I had this responsibility to show up on social media and be like this influencer, content creator, celebrity guy. And I was just this kid from Hull who had a very quiet life before this. Yes, I was working as a model, but I didn't even really use Instagram before this. Now all of a sudden there's this pressure to post on social media every day. I had to have opinions on things. I had to have a voice. I had to be someone who I wasn't. There was this massive conflict. I knew I had to start showing up as something because people expected it of me, yet there was nothing to show up as, because for as long as I could remember, I'd abandoned myself. I'd abandoned my authenticity. I didn't know who I was at the core. And so my mental health crashed. I spiraled. And I know COVID was a real tough time for a lot of people, but for me in hindsight, it actually gave me the grace and the space and the time and the freedom to explore and navigate all of this without as much pressure as maybe I should have been under. And actually, this was the start of my radical self-development journey. The huge U-turn in my behavior was at this point. I hit this rock bottom. COVID hit. I was alone. I had no idea what to do, and I had to figure it out. I had to do something differently because at this moment in my life, I remember it so vividly. I felt trapped. I felt stuck. I felt like I had no options. And if you know what that feels like, you know it's not a good place to be in for very long. Fast forward to now, and it's very clear that my health journey, my mental health journey, my physical health journey, it started with admission and acceptance that even though I didn't have the best start and I had some difficult moments before, and I subconsciously found myself in these positions where I felt stuck, I knew it was also my fault. I knew it was also my responsibility, and I had to take ownership in my actions. And this took so long to get to. Like, this was not a flick of a switch decision. Like, this took me a long time to finally get to a point where I was like, this is on me. No one else is going to come and clean this mess up. I'm struggling, but it's also only me who can fix this. And before I came to this realization, I was engaging in some very destructive patterns. I was drinking, I was getting high, I was hanging out with people who weren't serving me. And if anything, I was even more of a people pleaser, even more driven by external gratification. I abandoned myself probably even more than I did before this whole experience. And eventually it just got to a point where enough was enough. And like I say, COVID was that time when I got to reflect on that and do something about it. But truthfully, this is when I first understood, like consciously and rationally, why people get so addicted to the past, why people get so infatuated with their history and decide to play it safe in the future. Because the responsibility of taking control of your life is so huge and so daunting once you look at your life objectively and realize it's only you who got you here, and it's also only you who can get you there. That is like this huge realization. It's scary as hell. It's a massive thing to contemplate. But now I was aware of my ignorance. I was aware of my willful ignorance, my blindness. And so I had a choice. I had path A or path B. I could do what most people do and settle into mediocrity, settle into comfort, because I had this list of reasons which validated my behavior. Or I could take ownership and just think, you know what, most of this is my fault. If not all of it's my fault, I'm going to choose to do something about it anyway. I'm going to choose to aim higher. And so I realized that I had to start everything again. I realized that I had to have health at the center, at the core of everything that I did. At this point in my life, I was drinking a lot. I was really taking the piss with my body, like taking the piss with my health, taking it for granted massively. And I now consider myself lucky to have had this realization as soon as I did. Because it was from this moment that I decided to put my health, my routines, my training, my nutrition, my environment, all of these things were now like my priority. All of these things were now at the center of how I was going to build my life in the future. I knew if I didn't change those things, I would just resort back to these old patterns, these old behaviors. And I didn't want that. That kind of behavior is what landed me there in the first place, landed me in that position. So I thought, you know what? Something has to change, and it has to be pretty drastic. And if there are some lessons that have really came out of that whole experience, it's that external validation is a real bad strategy. It's a really useless strategy, and it can feel so intoxicating at the time. When you get those likes on social media, when you get that blue tick, when people are stopping you in the street, when you can tell that other people envy you for the thing which you have and they clearly want, that can give your ego a real boost and it feels kind of intoxicating. But long term, it is such a useless strategy, because if your success isn't built off internal gratification, you thinking you are good, you doing things which impress you, you living in alignment, you living authentically, you doing things which build your discipline, build your self-worth, build your self-esteem, and those things don't come from outside of you, like that's the way it needs to be. That's the only way you can build success. If your success is built off of external stuff, it's not real success. It's a scam. And take it from someone who's lived it. The second thing I learned is that if you don't define yourself and your own path, someone else will. There is this temptation to think that if we just sort of idly pass through life and be kind of passive and not make real decisions, that there are no implications for that. There's this idea that if I don't go left or right and I just kind of stay still, that nothing's going to happen to me. But what I've learned is that if you don't define yourself and your own path, someone or something else will. And it's either you let someone else do that for you, or you do it for yourself, but there's no in between. And really, there's only one option that I think is gonna lead to fulfillment, gonna lead to a life which I am proud to live, gonna lead to a life which makes my future kids proud of their dad. And it's the path which I define, which I lead, not what someone else has done for me. I think that true freedom, which is pretty much what all of us want, comes from acquiring skills, creating value for people, and living in alignment. That's what freedom looks like. If you're living in alignment, as woo-woo as that sounds, that is what freedom looks like. You can work every day for the rest of your life, but if that work is aligned with who you are, it won't feel like work. It'll feel like freedom. It'll feel like purpose. And I realized that's what we all want. I was stuck in this trap, like many, many people, of romanticizing my childhood, romanticizing my past. But really what I was doing was I was romanticizing the lack of responsibility. I was romanticizing the lack of expectation. I was confusing this idea of being a kid must have been the greatest time of my life, when in reality, it was just a time in my life where I didn't have to show up and have high standards. I was expected to just be a kid. And when I got older and I had all of these expectations, all these responsibilities, I instantly started to romanticize my past. But really what I was craving was a lack of responsibility. And when I say it out loud now, it's kind of cringe. I'm like, oh God, as if I just said that. But it's the truth. I actually romanticized the period of my life when I had no expectations. I didn't think anything of myself. And so I felt freer in a certain weird kind of way. And I confused that with the good old days. I confused that with a better life. And what I've come to learn now is actually that's a shit life. That is no way to live life. What's way more rewarding, way more fulfilling is having high standards, having expectations of yourself, feeling the pressure, but then doing what's required to live up to those things. If it is aligned, if it is authentic. Now, you might be at the point in this video where you're thinking, this is a whole lot of waffle. How does this even relate to me? And I want you to think for a sec, like, yes, you might not have been on reality TV. Maybe you aren't a model. Maybe you didn't come from the city I came from. But I know hands down, at some point in your life, if not right now, you felt or you feel a certain kind of pressure to be somebody that you're not, to live out of alignment. You've got a gut feeling that's telling you to go left. And every day you're waking up and living right. I know that many, many men, because I've worked with them and I've met them, get tempted by shortcuts, get tempted by external gratification, get tempted by the things which tempted me when I was 20 years old. And every single time, taking that path leaves you feeling empty inside. I can speak from personal experience, and I can also speak from the men that I've spoken to as well. It always leaves you feeling empty. Reality TV was not the answer for me. Like, oh my gosh. Do I know that now? But this is just the same as using steroids or fad diets or crash courses and getting shredded. When it comes to your health journey, we're always looking for like the quick fix. We're always looking for the shortcuts, the hacks. And really, we've got this gut feeling inside, which is telling us it's not the right strategy. It's not the right way to go. We have these urges which are telling us that we should go after this goal by any means necessary. But the truth is, it's not by any means necessary. I believe that transforming your health, transforming your body, transforming your fitness has to be done in a certain kind of way, and it has to feel aligned. It shouldn't just be this thing that we rush. It shouldn't just be this thing that we take shortcuts and hacks to achieve. It should be something which we adopt into a lifestyle which we enjoy living, which we enjoy maintaining. Like, if it's something we feel the need to cheat on, it's not a good strategy. So if you're watching this right now and you're thinking, I want to get in shape, I want to improve my health, I want to build a physique I'm proud of, like, good for you, man. Good for you. But learn from my mistakes secondhand, going after it the wrong way, taking the shortcuts, living out of alignment, not trusting your gut, that is a one-way ticket to feeling empty. Like I said at the start of this video, I don't regret going on reality TV. It taught me a whole bunch of lessons, but I do regret not listening to my gut. I do regret letting other people dictate my path. That I'm not massively proud of. And it actually derailed my journey for so long. And it's funny, like if I connect the dots looking backwards, everything kind of makes sense. Like it's so good that I went through that whole experience, because it sort of led me to be in this position today where I get to do what I do and I get to live the life I currently live. And I guess not everything makes sense in the moment, but it doesn't mean that not everything makes sense. See, I was looking for self-esteem in everything outside of myself, when really my self-esteem should have come from myself. That's why it's called self-esteem. The truth is, the man that I am today would never have gone on Love Island, would never have gone on reality TV. It gave me a massive audience, but at the time that was my worst nightmare because I had no self-esteem. I didn't want the spotlight on me. Becoming health-centered, becoming health-focused, prioritizing my routines, my training, my nutrition, my lifestyle, my environment, all of these things were the real catalyst to my success, because I finally became more disciplined. I finally became more resilient. I finally became more confident. I was building myself into the kind of person who commands respect for himself as a natural byproduct, as a natural default. Like, it slowly became impossible for me to lack self-esteem when I was doing lots of things I considered to be of high esteem. It was impossible for me to carry on like I lacked self-respect when my day-to-day routines were consisting of things which I found admirable and respectable. And if there's one thing which dug me out of that hole during COVID, when I was feeling helpless, feeling optionless, feeling stuck, it was putting my health first. It was the reason why I managed to turn this all around, and the reason why I'm making this video today. And this is what my RISE method is all about. The method that I use with my guys that I work with to help them build better routines, improve their inputs like their training and nutrition, build mental strength from the inside out, and engineer environments for them which are conducive to success. They don't work against them, they work for them and provide them with a bit of a slipstream to keep them going towards their goals. It's about long-term success and feeling capable rather than that all too familiar feeling of emptiness. It's one of the worst feelings ever. I wouldn't recommend it. If you want to know more about my RISE method, you can hit the link in the description of this video, and I'll share with you my free video course walking you through the exact process step by step, so you can steal it for yourself and you can save yourself the whole journey I went through to learning all of these lessons myself. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe if you did, and I will see you in the next one.